It is time to bring in Jim Lynch. It's time for Cover Your Assets. Jim is an independent voice on Wall Street, the economy, politics, sports, bringing many years of experience to those subjects and others. Good morning, Jim.
And good morning to you, sir.
Well,
and everybody out there, I hope you're doing great, and I hope you're breathing deeply this wonderful, beautiful day.
It's
the day for living.
We actually got about 3 inches of snow here last night.
Well, good for you. Good for you.
We've had more snow in March than we had in December and January. How do you like that?
I love it. I love snow.
It's
we
amazing.
Really haven't had enough down here.
Well,
I don't even know if we've had any.
Well, I guess we can come around now. We talk about the economy and the stock market, and we talk about the coronavirus, and we talk about social distancing and things like that. And the tug of war explained in Washington, D.C. between the Republicans and the Democrats about the aid package. I try to break it down like this to people, and you can tell me if I'm wrong or correct about this. The difference between the parties, by the way, it was a 47-47 vote. 47 Democrats voted against it, 47 Republicans for it. And there were two Republicans that were absent, and two that voted that did not vote. But I see the basic difference as the Democrats want very strong language put into this bailout that the corporations that receive millions and billions of dollars in this bailout will not use that money to buy back stock that is at incredibly low prices, and now with incredibly low interest rates, that money cannot. They want that forbid from happening. Am I correct in that in viewing it that way?
Yes. Regarding the Mitch McConnell offering, you're absolutely correct. I'd increase it a little bit in that I see it as the Democrats for the people, the Republicans for the corporations, because Mitch McConnell's bill gave $500 billion for the Secretary of Treasury, Mnuchin, to use at his discretion, and probably equally as disastrous, he didn't have to report who he gave that money to, who the corporations were that he gave that money to for 6 months, which would mean after the election. So it was a very callous attempt by Mitch McConnell and his group to once again usurp the safety, the economic welfare of the individuals. Now we segue to the fact that one is over, and thankfully Speaker Pelosi has brought forward in the House another bill which basically, we really can't go through it. It's very thorough, but very simple to read. But to just read it wouldn't do it justice. Bottom line, it covers very significantly individual needs, citizens' needs, be it in health, education, support for small businesses, and so forth. So let's see what Mitch can do with that if indeed it passes the House and goes to Senate. But I find it, I mean, it's so beyond the pale, I can't even get upset with it. How gross the attempt of Mitch McConnell to basically take $500 billion and give it to corporations. Corporations will be able to get all the money they want from the Federal Reserve. They'll pay interest. They will get money if they want from the federal government if eventually there's some new legislation which says, fine, we're going to help you, but we want a piece of your company. So all systems go. Let the fight begin. And if indeed the Republicans fight the Pelosi bill, it'll be a great template for a tremendous win by the Democrats in 2020 election, because as people are on their behinds from this virus, they're beginning, I'm certain, to wake up to the fact that the Republicans have been nothing but screw them, be it in the last a tax bill that went to the wealthy and did nothing for the economy, and these brazen attempts to do more for the corporations and very little. But thank God for Speaker Pelosi. Not only has Trump met his match, but Mitch McConnell has met his match. So I'm hopeful that things will come out for all of us in a very good way.
So as we're speaking this morning, once again, this is the thing I think that confuses a lot of Americans. The Dow futures are up almost 900 points, but that's folks is a prediction what the stock market will do when it opens up. Once again, explain to people these wild swings we see up and down and what creates them.
Well, the wild swings have happened because, one, when the virus hit and people realized the possible detriment to the economy, we're going back 3-4 weeks now, and that has materialized. People basically say, I want cash. I'm out of my funds. I'm out of my stocks. They started selling. Then some thought, gee, that's panic selling. That was probably about 2,700. It got down to 27,000 in the Dow Jones averages. It got down to 18,000. Since that time, we've had two forces at work: those who still want out and those who have sold the market short. As I mentioned to Jill and yourself last week, selling short means Jim says, I don't like the market. Marshall has stock that he's not doing anything with. Jim sells in the open market to individual Y. Jim borrows the stock from Marshall, pays him a slight charge for it, and delivers the stock to the person he sold it to. Therefore, Jim now is short that stock, but he has given the stock to the person who he sold it to. So once that stock goes down, Jim can come in and cover it, down 10 points, down 5 points, whatever. When he covers it, he returns the stock to Marshall. That is short selling. That is what's happened. You recall from last week, if you do, the market was in, I think, the 19,000, 20,000 Dow Jones area. There was a little bit of an, I said, I think, stay firm here. It's down 10,000 points. Let's see if you can get a rally. Well, we got a rally of about 1,000 points. That was specifically people covering shorts, and people had decided that common stocks were now of value versus where they were, and probably more importantly, versus where they would go. So you have at play speculation on the part of short sellers, and you have at play fear on the part of people who want to finally get out and take their profit or basically cut their losses. And then finally some people who are bottom fishing. I think today's 900 advance in the futures is probably primarily fueled by short covering because we have found, first of all, Europe was up dramatically, European stock markets. We now have some real meat being put on the bone, not final, for stimulus and for helping the average citizen. So the shorts have said, fine, I might have shorted at 25,000. It's now 19,000, 6,000 points. That's enough for me. A short who went short at 22,000 and it's 19,000. Hey, there's something on the horizon here that's good. I'm covering. That, in essence, is why the fluctuation of such significance.
All right, because I think people see this, and sometimes they don't understand because they're not involved in the market exactly what's going on, and it's even more confusing to people now because, of course, with the daily conferences on the coronavirus, the stock market and business is mentioned so much. And people then, I think, go look at the stock market numbers and they're just confused because if you don't know the story, if you haven't read the book, you're going to be completely out of touch with what all these figures mean.
Let's go back 2 years. People weren't that involved in the stock market in the sense that they had a small position, we'll say, in funds. The stock market was doing nicely. People weren't jumping up and down one way or another. Then all of a sudden, the president decided to be an expert, and he started touting the success of the stock market during his 2.5, 3 years. People then were forced to pay attention. Gee, the stock market, what does that mean? Gee, the president's saying this. Gee, the president's saying that. The president of the United States has become what we call a tout. A tout is normally somebody at a racetrack who says to a lot of different guys, "Hey, number 7, he's gonna win it." Trump has become a tout of the stock market. Why? Because he has been thinking that the success of the stock market since he came into office will help him get reelected. Now, when it first started coming off, he didn't care about the virus. He was worried about the stock market. So all of a sudden, Trump kept coming out with, the stock market, thereby confusing people. If you're not in the stock market, it's got nothing to do with you other than as an overall barometer of either speculation or investment. If you're not involved in it, you should only say, well, are they buying? Are they putting money to work in this economy? That's good for me as an individual. Are they selling, which means they have left confidence, or selling short? Yes, I should be concerned about the economy, about my own well-being, not about the stock market. Roughly 10-15% of people are involved in some way in the stock market of the overall population. That leaves hundreds of millions who are not involved at all. If you're not involved, do yourself a favor and treat a lot of the behavior going on as speculative, psychological, and as I've said, the president is touting it because he thinks it'll help him get elected. Well, now it's going to reverse because he did something yesterday or whenever it was. Basically, he is implying better the economy should do better and the stock market should better, even though by reopening business and basically lowering people's need to distance themselves and so forth, he's not going to get it done, by the way, but he's out there saying, I'm willing to see people die if it helps the economy. In fact, some idiot lieutenant governor in Texas said, people in their 70s or whatever, and, if they die, and helps the economy, helps young people. Folks, that's what you should be looking at, how callous people in government can be. Now, let me switch to something now. Regarding stocks, we're talking about psychology. There's a guy named David Tepper, Appaloosa Fund, made a big fortune in '08 in bank stocks. He was on the financial news station the other day, basically saying he's bottom fishing a little bit. Now, this is a pro, okay? He manages billions of dollars. He's a plain old-fashioned guy. He said, but until I see the virus addressed, particularly the president using what he said he was going to use in this defense mobilization fund and start buying hundreds of thousands of ventilators, I'll just be very quiet, take a little stock here and there. He is an investor. He is saying he believes life is necessary for the stock market to revive and to succeed, which means we must solve the virus problem. Say one more point on economics, and then I want to switch a little. 70%, write it down, 70%, 70%, of the economic activity, the thing that makes the economy hum, is done by the retail investor. We got 360 million people, okay? 10% of that is 36 million. Chop off here and there. 250 million people are the ones who buy things in the economy that makes it go. Corporations only make it go because the 70% of the population is buying things. When they stop, as they have, to save themselves from buying goods that they don't really need to live, that's one of the basic reasons why the stock market has come down. And until we make people healthier physically, and until we make people healthier psychologically, the market's going to fluctuate up, down, and sideways.
Let me, before you go on to your next thing, I want to point out, because people don't understand, the difference between the Democrat and Republican proposals that is holding up this stimulus package from being developed. Of course, the Republicans, it's $1,000 for every adult in the house and $500 for every child, up to three. Okay, the Democratic proposal is $1,500 per adult, $1,500 per child, up to three kids. But individuals earning more than $75,000 and couples earning more than $150,000 would need to repay some or all of that amount. Also, the Democrats want put in that stimulus bill that the money that goes to corporations and to businesses cannot be spent on buying back the stocks that now are at incredibly low prices and making money. That has to be prohibited. Those are the differences that lie between this package being approved or not approved.
And what I've just told you is proof positive that the Democratic package is the package, because it goes to those people who mostly need support and help. The idea is 75 and over, you got to start giving back the money. If you're making a salary or total compensation of 75, you're in a very good job that you'll probably come back to, even if you've put on furlough for a week or so. Those people will be whole automatically. The people in the middle to lower classes will not be made whole, even as things get better. They'll be made whole eventually, but it'll take them a longer time, because corporations will try and keep them out of work and work in a smaller fashion to keep their overhead down as the corporations survive. The Democrats are right on. It's not just because I'm a Democrat. It's because it's common sense. And folks, I hope since you're home and you're watching television and you're thinking and you're saying, Jesus, when am I going to get the groceries or this or that or the other thing? It's making you get more realistic in terms of what the government has done to you in the last 3 years. Taking regulation off things like pollution, environmental control, regulations on pesticides, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Let alone you got a 1%, 2% tax decrease on the last go-around. The people who are wealthy got a 15% cut. So this is your chance. People have been moaning throughout the country. I'm not saying everybody, about things. This is your chance to take it all back. Support this proposal. Vote in November and vote all these Republicans out. If they had impeached Trump, we wouldn't be here. Why wouldn't we be here? Because there'd be somebody who would be responsible enough and have the guts enough to say that Trump made a drastic error 2 years ago when he cut out from the CDC the subsidy that was involved in monitoring pandemics. That little subset basically had a person, an American, working in China with Chinese on viruses. Why? Because China has been the seat of viruses for lots of reasons. We would have been way ahead of this. But now let me segue. In January, January of 20, the CDC put out a warning on what was coming in terms of the thing from Wuhan, okay? The president was briefed. The president, for almost 2 months, was in denial. He's an executive. He was supposed to stand up and make hard decisions. He didn't. Rather, he was worried about his stock market, about his businesses, etc. And so we're going to have a worst-case scenario, or we already have had a worst-case scenario, because of the absence of leadership on the part of the president.
All right. Well, we are out of time already.
Oh, for God's sake. I got 2 or 3 more hours to go here, man.
I know. Well, we'll take off another chunk next week.
Jesus, good God. Why do you let me talk so long? I think it's Jill's fault.
Hey, Jim, be safe.
Yes.
You and your family be safe, and we'll speak to you next week, okay?
You too. The most important thing. You too. If Jill is there or wherever she is, the best of her.
All right.
Okay.
Take care,
See
Jim.
you, buddy. Right, bye-bye.
Jim Lynch, and Cover Your Assets this morning here on Robin Hood Radio.